Hi everyone and welcome to the Jazzahead podcast. My name is Peter Schulze and I'm one of the two artistic directors of Jazzahead. We do these series of podcasts and interviews and shows to shorten the time for you until Jazzahead 2021. And because there's just so much to discover on the international jazz scene and the German jazz scene that we want to take a closer look to. First interview partner is German pianist Pablo Held, talking about his own podcast, his musical influences, and his upbringing in the family. Welcome, Pablo Held, to the first Jazzahead podcast, for the preliminary podcast for the next Jazzahead. We're both German. We talk in English because it's mainly for the international audience, not so much for the German audience. Even though it's a strange situation that we both are German and we talk in English. We picked you as the start for the podcast because you do a podcast yourself. It's called Pablo Held Investigates. And that's basically interviews with or talks with musicians. Why did you start that? Was it because you were incontent with journalists, or was it sheer curiosity, or what was that made you start these podcasts?
Well, I'm very interested in interviews myself. I've been reading interview books for all my life. I really like, what can happen in a conversation if both parties are present and listening and curious. And so I've been always reading books like that, reading autobiographies, of course, too. But these interview books are really what I really like. But there were a lot of moments, and also in podcasts I heard or in interviews I saw on YouTube, there were a lot of moments where it was like, where I felt like the interviewer who was asking the questions would sometimes stop right in the moment where it got really interesting for me.
Okay.
That was one indication for me. So I was like, why do you stop now? I need this information. So the other day I was reading a book about Billy Strayhorn, and an old school friend of his talked about some easy things that he showed him on the piano that helped him tremendously. Mm-hmm. And the sentence stopped there and the story stopped there. And this is like a perfect moment for me to step in. I would be like, what is it that he showed you?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think a lot of interviews stop right in the very, very interesting parts, and frankly, a lot of interviews are just sometimes a show for the interviewer to show off what they know by asking very, very clever questions, and I get really fed up with that because when I'm in an interview like that and I get asked questions like that, where I feel like it's more about the question than the answer, or not even about the answer. I really like it when it's about the conversation, about the connecting. Then it's not really about questions or answers at all, but more about two persons connecting. And I feel with some jazz journalists, it becomes more a show of their knowledge. Or they want to put you in kind of a position. You're this kind of player, right? And then you have to defend yourself. So these moments were an indication. And also, whenever I'm on tour with somebody I really like, I ask them questions about how they do things. And these that can lead to a very, very long conversation. And we're on the road for a long time, so we have to spend our time doing something. And I think that's a very productive thing to do, to ask yourselves how you deal with the music. That's another indication. But the other one that is really important to me is that as I said before, I read a lot of interview books, but not only by musicians, but also from filmmakers, painters, artists, or actually anybody who is good at what they do, I like to listen to or read from somebody who talks about what they do, because if you're really good at something, you can usually also talk about it, and it's fascinating. The act of creation is fascinating to me. So I'm curious what goes into the act of creation. So I noticed that I was paying a lot of attention in interview books about, Michael Caine talking about acting and various processes of filming something and lenses and something. And I'm not an actor, and I'm not a camera guy or whatever, but I'm interested because somebody is talking honestly and with passion about what they love. So I'm following even if I don't know the details, which is why it gave me, or I took the liberty to ask very, very detailed questions that most journalists maybe wouldn't ask, because they would think, the general audience won't follow.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. So you don't think about an audience while you're making interviews, but it's just your own curiosity.
Yeah, and I think that's personally for me, that's more fulfilling than when I would think of an audience. That would mean I would have to explain every little theoretic thing, or I would have to explain every name that gets referenced. So that is actually something that stifles the conversation and puts it on hold for a while.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You do not only interviews, this was about interviews, you're a musician mainly and foremost.
Right.
But you do audio commentaries in the recent weeks and months, audio commentaries on your own records. I found that a really interesting and thrilling thing to kind of explain what is going on in the music.
Thank you.
What did you lead to that?
Well, it's basically something that is connected to also my activity on social media and how I'm doing things there on Instagram or Facebook. I'm basically doing the things there that I would like my heroes to do, which most of them don't do. But I would really love to hear an audio commentary about Headhunters, or Footprints Live by Wayne Shorter, or Bitches Brew, or Word of Mouth by Jaco Pastorius. Sacre du Printemps, I would like to hear an audio commentary of Stravinsky talking about him, how he wrote this little section. So I'm doing it myself. And I haven't done works like these, but I just assume, and that's nothing that's egocentric or something, I just assume somebody will be interested because somebody bought the record. They might be interested. Although it will be a very, very, these videos don't attract an audience like the interview videos, and that's already a niche. Because if you're honest, how many audio commentaries on the movies that you love have you really seen? And I've watched a couple, but I haven't seen many. But I really like that. I like that medium of the director talking about what went into making this movie, and that gives me some extra information that makes me sometimes appreciate the work even more.
Yeah,
and it's fun for me to do it.
It gets closer. I mean, that's what I feel. Because if a musician talks about what he's doing honestly and has a voice, to say the first thing, have a voice that's always more close to any audience that listens. And I think that's a very interesting, very good move that you took there.
Thank you.
But let's talk about what you do musically. I mean, you have a trio for more than 10 years.
15 years almost.
15 years, and you developed the ability of collective improvisation to an extent that is, well, enormous, but and there must be another challenge for this trio to further develop.
The challenge is to get together each time. The challenge is to be present in the moment each time and not rest on what you think you know and what is your comfort zone. We're stretching our comfort zone every time, and we always talk about it if we feel like we haven't been stretching the comfort zone enough. So every time we go on stage or in the studio, that's another challenge. We don't think in bigger challenge like we want to accomplish this or something. It's more really the challenge doesn't stop, which is what makes us continue actually.
But it's difficult to transfer that to an audience then, I think, because the challenge that you have is on such a level that it's difficult for an audience to easily follow at times.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it can be nice for an audience to see us maybe at the end and at the beginning of a tour, because they see that it's two different concerts of the same guys playing similar material maybe, but the way we do it on stage is that we play without a set list and without arrangements. But so we could play tunes and we will play tunes, but we won't play tunes for a long time and be somewhere that is just happening in the moment. And it happens because you are there. Actually, it happens because the audience is there. It wouldn't happen that way if we would just be the three of us. So the audience is such a part of the concert that if you would see us two times, you would see different things. And that's the challenge of us for us, and also the reward also every time.
When you practice or when you rehearse with the trio, you just rehearse the tunes and do whatever happens in the concert.
A lot of time it will be a new song that I wrote. We usually get together for that. But in the recent weeks, we have been getting together and just practiced specific moods, or like we would talk about something that we rarely do, and then just play that for a long time. You know, a big challenge for us is to stay with things actually, because we so like to move around, that the actual staying with things, which is the comfort zone for a lot of music and a lot of players, is not our comfort zone. So that's something we've been working on in the recent weeks, which was a great challenge and a great pleasure for us too, because once you go where it doesn't feel as natural or as good to you, at first it's a little bit weird or uncomfortable, but when it gets more comfortable, you feel like, yeah, you have learned another language, or you've been to another country and you know a little bit more, which doesn't mean you have to go there each time you play, but it's just you broaden your palette.
Explore.
Yeah.
Explorations, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Ascent and buoyancy are two terms in the your last period that became important. What do they mean to you? I mean, I think it's not only physical.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want my music to be something that is uplifting for the audience and the players and myself too. So I want, if somebody's listening to the music, I want somebody to feel like they're moved, and not of course in an emotional way, but also in, I don't know, spiritual way maybe, or that it has an effect on somebody, that they maybe think about this music in a different way, or think about their life in a different way. You know, us taking challenges in the music or taking risks in the music. I hope this will transcend to the audience, that it's good to take risks and it's good to not know what's going to happen, and to go to the places where it doesn't feel comfortable, I think that's something that I'm also working on in my life with my issues, So I'm dealing with that in my life, but also in my music. And if that transcends to the audience, and that might just be a little help or whatever, that would make me happy.
Did your ability to improvise lead you better through the Corona times, you think? The art of improvisation?
I definitely think that we as improvisers, we could take some lessons that we learned there and apply this to life. But also, I don't want to uplift us as improvisers now, because all that we've done, you and me, Peter and Pablo, in this past 15 minutes is improvise. We've been improvising the whole time. So talking for human beings, or acting, or running, or looking is improvising. Everything is improvising. So we as improvisers actually have to remind ourselves that all we do in life is usually improvised.
That's not true for many people, I think. I'm afraid. They don't want to improvise because improvisation is not about security.
And that's true, but still, when you talk, you have certain things that you want to get across, but nobody plans every word, every sentence pre the time when they actually talk it. Or also, when you walk, you don't plan every step. That's improvisation. That's just natural. But I agree. There are people that are more secure and more, rather not so risk-taking in their lives. And there are people who are more like that, of course.
You played some compositions of your father as well. You even dedicated the record to your parents, elders.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit about your musical family background?
I've been growing up with music ever since I was born. I'm sure I heard a lot of music when my mother was pregnant with me. My father is a piano player and piano teacher, composer, and my mother is a piano technician, plays the guitar and the piano, and both are very, very interested in music, listen to music constantly and always trying to find new things that they haven't heard. So I've been growing up with a lot of different music, mainly jazz, I would say, and classical music, but there was also other, Brazilian music. My parents loved Joni Mitchell and James Taylor, Shirley Horn, Elis Regina, Miles Davis, Keith Jarrett, Herbie Hancock, John Scofield, Pat Metheny, Quincy Jones. The list is very, very long. And I, as a little boy, would pick LPs out of the collection of my parents that I was most attracted to by the cover. So Mahavishnu Orchestra, The Inner Mounting Flame, is an important record. Yes. That's an important record for me. I love the cover, and I love that Billy Cobham wears a Mickey Mouse T-shirt on the back of the record and plays like that. That was fascinating to me.
Two bass drums,
double bass drum. And there's other records as well, like In a Silent Way. And there's a great record of Jose Carreras playing Spanish songs that is very, very important to me. I would pick out these records again and again and listen to them and look at the cover and be intrigued by this music. And then I would just lie under the piano listening to my father play, or lie on the sofa listening to my father and my mother play. My father also had different projects, bands that would come to the house and rehearse. So I would watch them. And as a little kid, I would start banging on things. So my father got me a drum set actually the boyfriend of my aunt, who was a traveling musician. What's the word? He was a street musician.
Busker?
Busker, that's the word.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
So he was a busker, and he built all his instruments himself out of cans and whatever, and was a very funny guy. He's called Ramblin' Dan, and the Professor World Band. Yeah, that's him.
Rambling where?
Rambling
in
Dan,
Germany, or?
and he's in America right now, I think, and he's from there. So he was an important guy for me too, and he built me my first drum set. So that was my first drum set. And then my father gave me a real one for kids, and then a more serious one a couple of years after that. I started getting lessons, and I played along with all these records. Also to Stevie Wonder's records, I played along with them. Wasn't really interested in learning music from sheet music, more by ear, which is still something that I gravitate towards to more than reading music. Yeah, when I was 10 years old, I started to be a little bit more interested in the piano. My father noticed that and organized a lesson with a colleague of his, for me. And
so you were not forced to play piano?
Not at all.
By your
not at all.
father? Oh, great.
No, okay. No. My sisters actually, they
had no
played
chance
piano.
of resistance. So you had no
Yeah,
chance
it was very
of
natural.
resistance.
Yeah. But the gravitation towards the piano was very natural, I'd say. Not forced, as you said, and very, it just happened. But it needed that little extra push of my father of saying, okay, here's a lesson for you with a friend of mine. And he did a couple of those pushes again and again in my life that were very, very gentle, but very sincere, and that helped me a great deal sometimes to figure out what I actually want to do, to realize my potential and to go with it. So he was.
That's about
when
improvisation.
I was about. It's true, yeah. When I was about to quit piano, actually, or not to quit piano, but I said, because I was hanging around older guys on jam sessions playing piano. That's a couple of years later. I was hanging around with older guys who were a bit, sometimes a bit dark, a bit pessimistic about the whole concept of being a musician, which is a general thing, actually. People, I get asked that a lot. So it's easy for you to live, make a living being a musician, and people were telling me about this. Yeah, it's great that you come to all the sessions and they're so interested and all that, but it's really hard being a musician. So you should think about doing something else also, which is what I told my father. So I was like, I think I want to become a lawyer, and which is what. Yeah, I wasn't interested in that, but maybe I saw a couple of movies with lawyers being, I don't know, in the spotlight or something.
Musical lawyer
cool.
like Stephen Reich or so. There are some lawyers that play music, but they are mainly lawyers. Yeah, you can hear that.
Yeah, I don't want to be. I don't want to be that. My first dream was actually to be an actor, and that didn't work out, or I didn't pursue that. But then I told him, I think I want to become something like a lawyer, and maybe then just do music as a hobby. And he kindly said, I'm supporting you. I'm not supporting you without a reason. There's a reason why I support you in that music thing. I just enlisted you into the Jazz Academy in Dortmund. I think that was around the same time, or he just enlisted me to another.
Without asking you? No.
Yeah, without asking me.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah. Because he heard of this. Yeah, I think so. It's somehow my teenage years are a bit blurry in my memory, but I think he convinced me to enlist in this Jazz Academy thing, which was basically pre-study with first instrument, second instrument, ensemble playing, big band playing, harmony lessons. It was basically like studying, and that was some of the greatest learning experiences I had. And it definitely cemented my wish to become a musician. And that was really, really great. I met a lot of important teachers to be in that time, and it definitely set the path for me to study in Cologne, and which is where I stayed ever since.
What meant John Taylor for you, for example, then? Talking about teachers.
One of my most important teachers, Uwe Plath, who is a great tenor player from Dortmund, who was basically leading the Jazz Academy in Dortmund. He always gave me records and things to listen to. And he gave me a record of John Taylor, which is still my favorite record of John, which is called Roslyn on ECM. And I knew that he himself wasn't the biggest John Taylor fan. He just knew that I would be interested in this. And I really found this was a special thing to do, giving me a record that he himself maybe wouldn't have put on so often, but giving it to me because he thought I might be interested in that. That was the first time I heard John Taylor, and that was in, I think, 2003. And that really changed me. So I needed to listen to everything I could from John Taylor. And I asked other teachers at the academy if they know music by this guy. And so another important teacher for me was Matthias Bergmann, a great trumpet player who also lives in Cologne, who sometimes taught at the academy and also went on tour with us with the big band and stuff. That was when I was 15, 16. He gave me lots of records by Kenny Wheeler and also other records where John Taylor played. So I really, really was diving into that sound. And it all led to, there was a time towards the end of my tenure with the Jazz Academy where I started looking around. I want to study this music. Where can I study it? And also, where did all my heroes at that time? I was very interested in John Taylor, in Achim Kaufmann, in Hubert Nuss, and in Florian Ross. They weren't like Herbie Hancock or Chick Corea, guys I would never meet or something. These were people that I could actually meet and that I could actually see on concerts. So I thought I should maybe put an effort into getting a lesson with all of them, which I did. I took a lesson with every one of them, but some of the lessons were connected to each other. So I think the first one was driving to Amsterdam to take a lesson with Achim Kaufmann, which was amazing. And then making contact with Florian Ross in Cologne. And this was when I was still going to school. So I sometimes missed school to take a lesson with somebody. So Florian Ross, I would take a lesson with him in Cologne, driving to Cologne on the train. I still know I had all my CDs in my backpack and my Discman, listening to the music the whole time. Going to Florian Ross's house, and I played for him one song, and then he said, "Hold on a minute, I have to go." I was like, "Oh shit, did I ruin everything?" Because he was really a big hero of mine also. So he came back and he said, I just sent an email to John Taylor that he needs to listen to you.
Okay.
And I couldn't believe it, but he did. So that led to a lesson with John Taylor at the Hochschule in Köln, which was super nice. And I was super afraid and excited, but it was very nice. And John was very generous. I don't even think if he charged me for it. I'm not sure. But the thing is, meanwhile, I had tried to contact Hubert Nuss and even also enlisted in another workshop where he was supposed to teach, and he didn't come because somehow right before he was not invited anymore. So I was at that workshop. Hubert wasn't there. I told everybody that I enlisted in this workshop to study with Hubert, and he's now not there, and I was really upset. I went back home, had that lesson with John Taylor. And meanwhile, I had written an email to Hubert Nuss, who said, yeah, I'm not giving private lessons, so sorry. I'm teaching too much. I'm not giving private lessons. Then John Taylor sent an email to Hubert saying he should really meet me and give me a lesson. And then I had my first gig in Cologne, which was at Studio 672, which
At
is
Stadtgarten.
now called at Stadtgarten, which is now called Yaki. So that was my first gig with my trio. I had a trio back then with other people. When I started walking on stage, I saw a guy leaning at the bar, leaning against the wall, and I noticed it was Hubert. So I got super excited. We talked afterwards, and he said, yeah, it sounds really good. You can meet me tomorrow. Meet me tomorrow. Let's have lunch. And we started becoming friends right after that meeting. Lots of times during the week, I would skip school for having coffee with Hubert, so John Taylor, Hubert Nuss, those guys, I started a long relationship with them, eventually studying with John Taylor first at the Hochschule, and then with Hubert Nuss also while I was studying with John. So John was an incredible person to be around. He was always very interested in what we students were listening to, what we were checking out. He was always keen to play with us, so there was always a room with two pianos, which was great to see him play and to play with him, interact with him, and ask him, "Oh, what was this voicing?" Or "What did you do just there?" And he was always, "Well, I don't know. look at it. I don't know what it is." And he would always show us music by Kenny Wheeler, give us things to sight read because my sight reading was so bad. So he would always give me a Kenny Wheeler song, and by that showing me stuff about composition, showing me classical music. Once I brought my trio with Robert and Jonas. I brought the whole trio to the lesson. And he basically said, yeah, I don't want to say any negative things. I just want to enforce what's already there, what's good already. And he really liked the trio. And our relationship went on even after I stopped studying with him, because he quit teaching in Cologne at some point. And we met each other whenever we would play the same festival. We would make sure to hang out, and hung out a couple of times after that. And we also invited him to our own festival of the Klang Collective in Cologne. We invited him to play solo, and we hung out there. And we always kept in contact. I would always send him new records that I did, or send him emails whenever I would think of him. And he was always very, very encouraging, responsive. And I miss him every day, actually. I think about him a lot. I really think about him a lot.
He was such a great musician, yes.
Yeah, incredible.
No doubt, yeah. You made an interview with Norma Winston, his ex-wife, or so to speak. And that was moving as well, I think, for me when I saw that.
That interview actually led to us playing together, and she invited me to her home also to just play through a couple of Kenny Wheeler tunes and John Taylor tunes and talk about them the whole time, and it was really a moving experience. And she would always talk about this group and how important it was for her to find these contemporaries and to find these guys and to learn from them. But I'm sure, she so influenced them as well, in her own way.
We will have that series of podcasts from you in this series as well. And the one that you did with Bill Frisell, which was amazing as well and very touching. I like that. It was 2 hours, something like that.
Yeah, very long.
Yeah, long.
Yeah, I don't really set a limit when I talk to these people. I'm just happy to go as long as they want, because I have a lot of questions, or I'm just curious. So I have a lot of things to ask them. So with a couple of them, I was surprised how long they would go on with me, because I wasn't. With Joey Barron, I talked for 4 hours. With Ben Street, I almost talked for 4 hours. With Bill Frisell, also 2.5. And there always came the point where it was like, you don't have to talk to me. You don't have to. You don't have to keep talking to me. We can stop, because some guys also, I noticed, are so polite that they don't say, I actually don't want to talk anymore. So it's a matter of feeling when it kind of comes to an end. But with Joey Barron was like, he said, no, I made time for this. I want to talk. And he actually never drank or went to the bathroom or something. He just kept talking. And the same with Ben Street. When I talked to Ben Street, I think we started around 9:30 at night, or 9, at 9 or something, or 8, I'm not sure. But all of a sudden it was 1:30 at night. And I needed to teach the other morning at 9, so I had to stop. But I'm sure we would have gone on for another couple of hours, because it was so with some guys, if you connect, you can go on. You can just go on. It's not even about the topic or the question, as I said. It's more about connecting and being curious. And I just heard an interview of Jim Carrey, the actor and comedian, talking about Meisner, the famous teacher for acting. And Meisner said, if you're really interested in something, you will be interesting to watch. And I found that very fascinating. And also I take that as it reassures me that if I keep doing this, people might be interested, and so in that way you can actually forget about the audience a little bit, because and that also means
that's true.
That also means I can't interview people who I'm not interested in, which there aren't many, of course. I mean, because I will find something interesting with. There's always something to find, even if you don't like the music. That you can find something, because you can connect on a human level, maybe. But the thing is, I don't see myself as a journalist or an interviewer. I'm just being curious. So I need to have that fanboy level with me, and that person. I need to have this in order to actually go through all the emails and setting the date and making time for it, and then getting the gear for it and stuff like that. I can only take on these things when I really when I'm a fan,
Is there a role model for you, like Ethan Iverson's blog, Do the Math? That is
so. As I said, I'm sure. And Ethan is doing a great job, and I've checked out a lot of his interviews. And
even
he's
though not in video, but basically transcribed, but interesting.
Transcribed. Yes, I really like them. And he's
somebody who came immediately to my mind when I saw your first Investigates series.
Yes.
I thought, well, it's good that musicians do this job as well, I must say. Because they ask different questions.
Absolutely. There are several role models, and some of them are not musicians. But Ethan is a great one. I really like his interviews, and he really goes deep. I like that. There is the interview series by, what's his name? Oh, I forget his name now. trumpet player. I think the podcast is called Noise from the Deep, and his record label is called Green Leaf Music.
Dave Douglas.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Dave Douglas, he does great interviews as well. Yes. I like them. I've been listening to them. But also, I've been really into people like Mark Maron, who's a great comedian, US comedian. And I've been listening to his podcast, WTF, for, I think now 5 years. He always puts out 2 episodes each week, and he's talking to actors, musicians, to directors, to politicians. Barack Obama came to his garage to talk to him while he was president. So he's a big role model for me, and I really would like to interview him at some point.
Interesting. What is your time management? I mean, you see so much, you play so much, you do so much. I simply think that 24 hours a day is not enough. So how long is your day?
My day is actually 30 hours. No, no. I actually
these 6 additional hours are full of improvisation. Okay.
No, actually becoming a father helped me focus so much. I'm a father of 2, so I have a boy who's 4 years old and a daughter who's 6 years old, and I think my life got really, really turned upside down in 2014 when my daughter Elsa was born, and that helped me to be more focused in the time that I have. And I wouldn't have been able, or I wouldn't be able to do all the things I'm doing without the incredible support by my wife, who's an incredible force in my life and inspiration and help.
She helps you to make the day 30 hours.
In a way, she does, which isn't to say that I'm not doing things with my kids. The thing is, once Elsa got into daycare and kindergarten, that meant all of a sudden it wasn't about, okay, now I have the kid and now you have the kid and I can do something. Now I have the kid and you can do something. It was about, okay, here's from 9 in the morning until 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you can actually do something. You can do something, and that means that time is sacred for me. At first, I was doing, okay, I'll do a little bit of this. Oh, maybe I should do this. No, I'm going to drink coffee now, and then I'm doing this. It didn't work. So you settle into it, and then you see, okay, now I use this time to practice or to play piano. Then I'm going to do my taxes, but while I'm doing taxes, I'm listening to an interview because this will make it feel more nicer, you know. Then I will write booking emails, but while doing that, I will check out the new record by Wayne Shorter or whatever, because this will make the booking process feel much nicer. Then I will transcribe a song or something that will help me on because I like to do different things at once, and I don't really see them as multitasking.
No?
Yeah, I don't see them as that per se, because I think of them as the music part makes everything else feel more nicely to me, or or make it better. I used to listen to music when I was mowing the lawn. You know, I was listening to music when I was on the bus. I was always listening to music. So I'm listening to music for when I'm cleaning the apartment, when I'm doing something. When I would go with the kids who were asleep in the buggy, I would go through the park. I would be listening to music. You know, I wouldn't be listening to music when they would be awake and wanted to play with me. Although I would put on some music then as well. So I always try to incorporate that. So I'm listening to music.
How do you make your choices then, as to
what I feel like? it might be something. It might be okay. I have to learn this song because I said in my concert series I want to play this song, so I want to know this by heart. So I would put on all the versions of These Foolish Things in a row. So I'd be listening to that in 3 hours, These Foolish Things, and afterwards I would be able to play it, although I've been doing other things.
Okay.
So it becomes a thing of combining activities with each other while staying focused, and also staying focused in that time where you can work. And then after that, I don't work anymore. I might be listening to music, yes, but I don't write emails anymore or stuff like that. So this focusing thing, and also when I'm on tour, I would be writing emails and listening to music. I would be doing my taxes and listening to music and stuff like that. So that raises the question, and raised the question for me to when is the time to actually relax and do nothing. And I had to actually force myself to do that when I was on the road in the last year, the end of the last year. I had to force myself to, okay, no, I'm not writing emails anymore. I'm watching a movie or just looking outside or whatever. Because that, I had to be careful a little bit to not work too much. And not health-wise, it's more, I'd say more psychologically or emotionally, to be not under
pressure.
Not pressure, or put so much pressure on myself to create all the time. To just be, and that's something where the family also helps.
Taking decisions or letting happen, that's something to decide, yes.
And also what really
musically
helped me
as well.
What also really helped me is starting to outsource things. So that's obviously a privileged situation to make that kind of a choice. But when I was doing the interviews for a year or so, I got help from a great friend of mine who stepped in as my producer. So I'm paying him to edit my interviews, to be my advisor. And his name is Till Commentaries, and he's been a great help since that.
This is for Jazzahead, and you played Jazzahead as well with your trio years back. Did that mean anything to you then?
Did it mean something
to me? Yes, it did. It did indeed. What did it mean to you?
Well, it was a great experience, actually. Also in the regard of being focused, because we talked about it because, oh shit, we only have 20 minutes. The first time we played it, I think, was in 2010. So the trio had been together for 4 years, and we had been doing this no setlist approach for 2 years then. So we thought, oh, how can we put all this that so we sometimes need the time to get into it. How do we do it in 20 minutes? And I'm always very optimistic and very, I'm the optimistic guy. So I just said, that's our frame, 20 minutes. And everything that happens in those 20 minutes will be what it is. Yeah, it might be shorter but it could be very, very structured as well. And so we just did what we did in an hour, in 20 minutes. It was just like one wave. And I think there's still a video online of it. And then we played Jazzahead another time 6 years later. And I think in between I was at most Jazzaheads just running around trying to talk to people to promote the trio. What it meant was to play for an audience that is a bit unnatural, which you rarely have an audience made out of journalists and bookers most of the time, who are looking for new people to book for their shows, which is a great opportunity, but can also mean a lot of stress for you as a performer, because you're thinking maybe too much about the end result, which usually stifles the creative spark, the creative process. If you think about the gigs you want to play while you're playing a gig, is not optimal. But I think we made having that trust in ourselves and that joyous spirit when we play helped us to get into our little bubble of friendship and just stay there and hope that the creative process that we had on stage will transport itself to the listeners. And I think it did, because to some at least, because from some promoters that we wound up playing for in the following years, they came to me and said, yeah, the first time I heard you was in 2010 at the Jazzahead. And that's always it's always nice, because you noticed, you kind of could put faces into this nameless crowd after the fact, which is nice, because you look into but you look into a crowd of faces that you don't know, or you don't even see the faces because it's black, it's dark in the room, and afterwards people say, yeah, I was there, and then you kind of can connect the faces.
Yeah, but I mean, that is really daring, I must say, to have this concept of non-set list and go quasi virginal into a gig under this pressure. I mean, with knowing that all these journalists are there and these bookers are there, that is something hardly to understand. That you dared that. Amazing.
Yeah. Thank
you.
I
mean, normally you prepare these 20 minutes very accurately, that you play exactly on the second, but not to do that is in this condition, in this situation, really admirable, I must say.
Mm-hmm. We didn't think about that in that way when we did it. In retrospect,
lucky
you might think that.
Maybe if you thought about that, you would not have dared that.
And also, how strange would it be to develop something as a band, and then you want to show this band, and then do something completely different by structuring your set and making everything polished. That would have been not an accurate presentation of our music. So I think it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, but to keep on with that is in such a situation is really daring.
Yeah.
Okay, Pablo. Nice talking to you. I think our
Same
time
here.
is
Thank
over.
you.
Yeah. We have not 4 hours, but we could go on easily. But we do that later.
Okay.
So thanks for being here, and thanks for your music.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. Bye. Thanks for listening in. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes. Follow us and our new Jazzahead blog. You can listen to the 2010 and 2016 showcases of the Pablo Held Trio on our YouTube channel.